me go straight across to my colleague Neha Botra, who joins us from the il&fs board meet on the sidelines of that to give us a sense of what has been decided. And Neha, it's been a bit of a piecemeal approach, but even so, will they be able to ensure that there's enough liquidity to bridge the gap to the 90,000 crores that il&fs needs to stay afloat?
This is exactly the questions shareholders were asking the management. In fact, I interacted with some of them as they stepped out of the annual general meeting. And this is the biggest concern. What happens to their money? Remember that State Bank of India, LIC and Oryx Corporation are the biggest stakeholders as far as il&fs is concerned. But there are smaller stakeholders as well who've invested their money in this company. Now, as far as this infrastructure lender is concerned, it's cash strapped. What happens to all the projects? Because do remember, only 14 out of the 19 have been completed so far. As far as the interaction with the management is concerned, I do pick up that while there is a lot of optimism with respect to the support they'll get from the other stakeholders like LIC and State Bank of India, for instance, Oryx Corporation to some extent as well, it's clearly the rights issue that they are banking on, which they say they've got interest from not just State Bank of India, LIC and Oryx Corporation, but they feel that there will be a significant appetite from market participants as well. Now, this is something that they wish to launch in the next 45 days to mop up close to 4,500 crore rupees. Now, this sum will go a long way as far as meeting some of the short-term and medium-term debt requirement is concerned, as far as these payouts are concerned. But clearly, it's very small compared to the minuscule amount, really, compared to the depth of the problem that we are looking at. The magnitude is huge. Remember that they've defaulted over the past 2 weeks for 5 payouts alone, and the entire problem started a month back, but it was considered to be a one-off event. But the series of defaults have made the regulators sprung into action. It's not just RBI, it's not just SEBI, it's even the government, the finance ministry that is awake to the problem and understands the kind of liquidity crunch this problem can eventually unfold into. In fact, I'm also given to understand that as far as several of the initiatives discussed today was also an agenda to raise about up to 16,000 crore rupees from the sale of assets from the transport arm. Now, this sounds very simplistic to me because do remember that this is a company that has been defaulting. There are lots of legal angles as far as selling assets is concerned. To that end, I asked the management what really the plan was, and on the sidelines I was given to understand that they are working closely with the government and also with the Reserve Bank of India to work around these legal tassels to ensure that they can meet the requirement for payout by selling some of these non-core assets, which also include tangible assets like land in the headquarters in Bandra Kurla complex. So clearly these as of now are only ideas on paper, because we do know how the market is when it comes to selling out assets. How willing will buyers be? Will they get the price they are looking for? These are all the problems that will crop up. But as of now, as far as talking to investors is concerned, this is the pitch they are making. They are saying that they have a rescue plan, not just from the government. They don't just have strong shareholders who have deep pockets like LIC, for example. They also say that the overall environment will change, because they do hope that as far as 14 of the projects are concerned, it is complete. And this is something that they are working towards. But more importantly, we have to keep in mind that banks and mutual funds have a huge exposure to this infrastructure lender. And should there be any rot, remember that it's a systemically important NBFC as far as RBI is concerned. And should there be any weakness here, it will have far-reaching implications across the financial space. And this is something that a month later, the regulators and the government want to nip. How successful will they be? How much damage is done? All these are issues that have been discussed in the meetings yesterday with the Reserve Bank of India, and also the meetings they had in the Finance Ministry with the top shareholders like State Bank of India also. So clearly what we are looking at right now is perhaps just the tip of the iceberg, but thankfully the regulators and the government are alive to the problem, as they say they are, and they have sprung into action. They want to put in place corrective measures to ensure that the entire mess can be contained and it does not cascade across the financial space, because that really will be a huge concern, because already we are seeing a lot of liquidity crunch in the money market. In fact, we had RBI stepping in this week to bring in place certain moves, for example, hiking the SLR to about 15%, which would allow banks to dip into about 15% of their statutory liquidity reserve holdings, which would give them more money. In fact, it's freed up about 2 lakh crore in the banking space, which is a huge amount in the given situation because of the crunch we are currently grappling with. Apart from this, of course, as far as NBFCs are concerned, banks have developed a soft spot because remember, after all the mess that we saw as far as the large borrowers are concerned, NBFCs are also looking vulnerable, and banks are a concerned lot at this point.
They are, and one can completely understand why. Thanks, Neha, for taking us through those details, and thanks very much for tracking that story for our viewers all through the day.